sure. It's so amazing to have you here in person at Daffy HQ. And so I thought we'd just start off with how did you hear about Daffy and how did you get involved?
I think I heard about Daffy because I followed Adam on Twitter. I remember when people were on Twitter. I had always been interested in sort of the fintech space and personal wealth and savings and investing and all of those things, even separate from my day job as a venture capitalist. And so, I followed him, like, had seen the Wealthfront story, had seen some of those things. And so saw this new thing. And it was fascinating to me because we spend so much time focused on building wealth and organizing our money and managing our money on the sort of consumption side. But for a lot of people, the giving side's a huge part of it as well. And it's this complete black box. And for me, that had always been frustrating because I think I don't actually subscribe to this as a lifestyle the way some people do. But I do think to some extent, if you are a nonprofit that can't prove that you could, in theory, survive as a for profit, like, hey, we know that giving kids food so they're not hungry or helping women get safe healthcare like abortions, like this actually creates money and it makes sense as a thing. It's not just a social good. If you can't do that, then why are you maybe in existence? And I feel like, but our giving, we do the same thing where we just dump money on causes that pull your heartstrings, or you have one extra glass of wine at a benefit, and all of a sudden you're the biggest donor to some cause that you're like, I don't even really care about that, right? So why not organize it? And so when I heard about Daffy, it made so much sense to say, oh, this is a great way to actually be as rigorous about giving back as you are about earning all this money in the first place. And for a lot of people, one of the big reasons behind wanting to earn is so you can use it to help
Others.
donate.
Yeah, and help others. I mean, a big thing that a lot of our members say is that it helps them be more intentional with their giving. So I'm curious, even before becoming an official investor, you were pretty active on Daffy. Where does your giving ethos come from? It seems like you've been involved in
Yeah.
philanthropy since a young age. I'm curious where it started for you. Was it someone in your life or just an experience that you had?
I think that my parents were always very much focused on donating and giving back and tithing and volunteering, like all of those different kind of things, different levers, being civically engaged, all of that. And so to me, that was something that you just do as part of kind of the social contract of being a human in the world. If you have any lever and any amount of privilege, you use it to help other people. And so that was always a big part of it. And then even in college, I was at Michigan State University. I was a philanthropy chair for the sorority I was in, Kappa Alpha Theta. And it was fascinating because things like Relay for Life, right? American Cancer Society, something that most people have kind of heard of if they're from the US, and especially if they went to college or high school here. Literally, all of these kids who just do it because they're in a sorority or fraternity or they're on an intramural sports team and somebody tells them, this is what we do. You show up at this time, raise this money, go do it. Kind of devolves into a party for most schools, but it's a huge fundraiser. And so when
Really?
you realize that there is this opportunity to do fun stuff, do the things you already want to do, and it also folds back into sort of giving back. And one of the reasons why you seek those kinds of leadership positions at college and stuff is thinking about your career. To me, there's always been this natural interconnectedness of you don't have to wait until you're 95 and 3 seconds before they pull the plug, try to give it all away. You can just have that be a part of your life.
I love make giving, or like we say, make giving a habit. I'm curious what led you, Cleo Capital, to want to invest in Daffy and be on this journey as we build, hopefully, one of the largest platforms for giving.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, when you find some investors are purely thesis driven, some investors are purely founder driven. I'm somewhere in the middle where I say, I care about all of these things in the world. And I think that I know a bunch of smart, and I'm constantly trying to know more, a bunch of smart, interesting people who are going to start interesting companies. And so when somebody's starting a company in a space that they are uniquely well suited for, right, deeply understand fintech, all of that, and it's a space that I personally really care about, it's kind of a no-brainer for me to invest when those stars align. The other piece is that like nonprofits are a huge business, particularly in America. In America, donating is massively also tied to taxes and financial benefits for people, and that's another huge
Part of our
business,
lives.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like there's all of these huge trends, and it's something I care about. And here's a founder who's uniquely well suited to do it, who I like. Like, why wouldn't
You've shared recently that you're investing in companies that are making the average person's life better. Part of what's Daffy is we want to make sure that many more people make giving nonprofit, whether it's $100 a week, a few $1,000s a year. And so I'm curious what components of what we're building at Daffy fulfill that mission, your thesis.
Cleo, we have a thesis called Complicated Consumer, and there's sort of a couple different pieces of it that I think that Daffy does a really good job at. So some of it is there are people with a tremendous amount of money and they want to donate it and they want to do it more efficiently and more effectively. And we've seen historically high profile examples of people with piles of cash and great intention, and it's spent on consultants and advisors. And it's like, I just wanted to help people, right? And we live in a world where it's relatively easy, unfortunately, to walk down an urban street in most city centers and hand $100 bill to somebody who looks like they're having a rough day. And I say unfortunately, because it'd be great to live in a world where there aren't people who look like they're having rough days and need that, or there aren't people having rough days. But it's actually hard to say, I want to go find an organization that's doing a ton of good and I want to give $1,000 a month or $10 a month to that organization into perpetuity so that they can continue to rely on my gift and they can help those people that I'm seeing in a more sustainable, scalable way. And so there are some tools that do that on Charity Navigator, GuideStar side, where you can get a sense of, is this a real charity or is this a scam? And I think that's been super transformative and helpful. You can get a sense of capital efficiency, all these things. But then that giving, that sort of last mile, is still really hard. You'll be looking at something and saying, okay, so I have to mail a check. I have to go get my credit card out of my purse. And I don't know about you, but a lot of my best shopping finds in the world have been lost to time because I'm like, I'll get my credit card later and I forget. And the same thing happens with donations. And so, how do you make it feel easy and just in time and just as simple as ordering a car service or buying something online with Apple Pay or whatever? And I think that Daffy does that for everybody. And then it also makes the tracking easy, right? You can pay attention to, oh, my personal theory of change might really be focused on racial justice or women's health. But because the charity events I get invited to are, I don't know, saving puppies, which great, but not my personal thing, I actually end up spending more money on that than I do on the stuff that I say that I care about the most. If it's not measured, it can't be managed. Is an adage that people use a lot. And we don't tend to manage our giving the way that we do tend to manage our, oh, wow, I've spent way too much on vacation or spindrift or whatever it is.
All of our other financial
Yeah.
goals. Yeah, I'm curious what other kind of new patterns you've noticed in your own giving since using Daffy and being so active. Are there particular ways in which you're using Daffy or trends that you've noticed about your own giving since you've joined?
It's fascinating to see how many different ways you give. And you guys are always building the platform to have amazing new use cases. It's actually interesting to know what you end up doing that's not necessarily on the platform. So people's GoFundMe's that are great causes, right? Or Cash App donations, direct giving, which is increasingly a huge part, especially I think for millennial and Gen Z. I do a lot of political giving, and that is obviously, not a nonprofit. And so it's interesting to look at all of that. And once you have that tip of the spear with Daffy, to start thinking about, where am I giving? Who am I giving to? Like, how am I deciding to give? I don't like to bet against human nature and investing in life. Humans are lazy, right? And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It means we're efficient. It means we've invented things like Taco Bell. Like, it's great. But humans are lazy. So if a friend is like posting about this amazing charity and they're just talking about it, sharing pictures, I'm probably not going to like remember the name, Google it, screenshot, whatever. If people link to the Instagram and I can click through to the Instagram and I can immediately hit donate, or I can immediately go to their website, grab their 501c3 number, put it directly into Daffy and hit donate. I do that a lot faster.
Well,
Even
and
if
that's a
it's,
plug for why everybody should follow Sarah on Daffy and see all the amazing
yes,
charities that you're giving to and
yeah,
get inspired. I've learned about some local San Francisco charities that I
yeah.
hadn't heard of by following you. And so that's like one of the graphs that we are trying to build out as we build those community features. Is most of the time it is through friends that you hear about a new organization doing great work in your cities. That's really cool. Are there one or two nonprofits that you want to raise awareness about to our followers and our community?
I think that finding nonprofits through the app or through kind of your own sort of research issue areas, even just thinking about what's the need at hand, right? A
Yeah.
few years ago, people were really focused on COVID. Right now, you look at things like climate and it's like, wow, okay, there's a heat dome, there's forest fires, right? So there's always like new things to find. I say that partially to say that I think that I'll tell you about a couple of my favorites, but I do think it's important to constantly
Extremely
be,
personal.
well, and just thinking about like what's changed, right? What's changed in the world? what are things, candidly, Planned Parenthood a few years ago wasn't one of my top places to give,
Yeah.
just because the world was a different place than it is now. So
Yeah.
now I'm spending a lot more money on abortion access and birth control access, kind and women's health nonprofits than I was a few years ago, because they need help more now. The same way that when there's a wildfire, that tends to be the cause that you're like, oh, wow, okay, yes, versus when there's not. And so some sort of perennial favorites of mine that I always love, I love organizations like Tipping Point in the Bay Area and Robin Hood in New York. They do a great job of taking a bunch of money from really smart people who and hiring really smart people and compensating them well in their grant making org. So they are supporting a huge range of people that you would have maybe never heard of. And so they also function as a great kind of finder of small, smart individual causes that wouldn't have necessarily been on your radar
Or
otherwise.
have the chance to flourish.
Exactly. Yeah. They're not causes that have millions and millions of dollars of operating budget. So I love those kind. And then a more kind of smaller, specific one, I really like Women's Prison Association. They've been around in New York for almost 150 years. They do an amazing job of helping incarcerated women and justice system involved women and their families and their children stay out of prison and that entire kind of complex. It costs $500,000 a year to incarcerate one woman in New York State. And most of these women are in for crimes of desperation. Hey, my baby has no food, right? Or hey, my boyfriend's a drug dealer, and guess what? I got dragged along. Not allowed to break up with him, and I got dragged along too. So these are people that are paying $500,000 a year, where you can still in New York buy a studio apartment for that, right? It's crazy to spend that much money to incarcerate them and keep them away from their kids and all these things, rather than like house them and help them and give them resources so that they're in a better position. And so those are some of the nonprofits I personally love, but I'm always interested in and looking for different solutions to problems that I'm learning more about or haven't yet personally experienced. And so I'm always looking to add to it as well.
A former senior advisor at Bumble, and we were recently inspired by their Kindness is Sexy campaign because we feel like generosity should be sexy. I'm curious what your take is on how we can make generosity something that people can really get behind and remember, because it feels like as adults, we sometimes fall out of the habit and our society isn't rewarding it as enough anymore.
I mean, I think that is important. It's understanding that. And I think, especially around dating, right? If somebody's a jerk to the waiter, like that's not somebody you want in your life,
Yeah.
right? And it's just that's how it is. And so we think about that as a gating factor, I think, with people, but I think we forget to bring that into our lives as we move forward. And anytime I have friends who invite me to their charity event or do things like that, even if it's not a cause I'm passionate about or if I can't attend, I always try to give something and send them a note back that's like, thank you for doing this, and give that sort of yes. One, we need gatherers, we need conveners, we need helpers in the world. And two, like if it's odd that we live in a world where no one blinks at saying, hey, let's go out to dinner, and you're at like one of those group birthday dinners that were like you don't eat any food, but everybody gets $100 check, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like, okay, and that's just life, and you think that's normal, but then people feel weird about or nervous to say, hey, come over, I'm going to make you brunch and donate $100 to whatever charity, right, for my birthday, or come to this nonprofit event, or here's a charity, instead of having a birthday drinks thing where you're buying me something, just donate. We don't normalize that enough, I think. You want to make sure somebody's nice when you first meet them and start dating them or become friends with them. And you want to make, and you donate if somebody dies, right? And then it's like most of our lives, we don't live going on first dates or dying.
Yeah.
And so, how do we make those behaviors kind of touch points that happen throughout and not just at like a couple life milestones?
I think there's so much opportunity for us to, like you said, just really celebrate when your friend does do that. It's part of them and it's part of, even if it's not your thing, it's their thing. And that's what makes them them. And you love them for that.
We all
Spouse
do
or
so many
partner,
things that like
friends.
aren't our thing, right? You're
Yeah.
like playing pickleball for somebody's birthday. You're like, this is not my thing, but it's your thing. And I love that for you. If somebody's stepping up and saying, I care about this cause, I want to donate, I want to give, then support them in that. And then, by the way, turn around and tell them what you care about and let them support you.